Okay, so now we'll discuss about network. So what is meant by network? Why it is required? How we can utilize it? All these things we'll discuss now. So okay, so in a generic world, as a human beings, we used to call other person or we used to identify other person with the help of name. Similarly, in computer world, in computer world, every device must be or every device would be identified with the help of IP address. So every device in computer world will be identified or called by the IP address only. Okay. So every device you can consider, it must be assigned with one IP address. Okay. So with that IP address only, we can contact or you can communicate that particular device. Okay. So you said that in computer world, every network, every device have one IP address. That's absolutely fine. So as per the standards, the international standards of the IP address, as of now, we have the IP address or IP address ranges or IP address available are 0.0.0.0 to 255.255.255.255. So this is the range available. So what is meant by this range? Okay. So basically the numbers are, for example, if you consider 0 to 100, if you consider. So like the numbers between 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 100 you have. Similarly, an IP address consists of four sets of numbers. Four set of numbers. Each set we used to call it as octet. Each set we used to call it as octet. Octet means number 8 in the binary. So number 8 in the binary. That I will discuss it a bit later. Okay. So each IP address consists of four octets or four sets. Okay. Each set will vary from 0 to 255. 0 to 255. 0 to 255. 0 to 255. This is the range available as of now. Okay. The four sets we have. That is the reason we used to call this IP address as IPv4 address. Means 4 octet, version 4. That is 4 octaves it has. So now, how we will calculate these numbers? How we will denote or how we will define this range? For example, 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot 0 to 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot 1. Okay, means 0 to 0, 0 to 0, 0 to 0, 0 to 1. Okay, and next similarly 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot 2 and then 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot 3, like that. The range will start from this 0 dot 0 dot 0 means first three digits will be remain same, last digit will vary up to 0 to 255. 10123, like that we have 255 address. Once this 0 is completed, then next it will start with second one, like 0 dot 0 dot 1 dot 0 to 0 dot 0 dot 1 dot 1 and then 0 dot 0 dot 1 dot 2. So first three will be this one and again it will vary from 0 to 255. The probability I can talk about. So this way you can define your ranges of the IP addresses. Okay. So if you consider this IP address, as I told you, each set will vary from 0 to 255. So there might be certain range of IP addresses available in the market. For example, I can say, let's say you have 1 crore IP address or you have 10 crore IP address. With this range, if you follow this approach, there might be some 10 crore number of IP addresses available, for example. So if you have a 10 crore IP addresses available in the market with this range, so the IP address cannot be like, it cannot be like 755 dot 755 dot 456 dot. It cannot be like that. Okay. The maximum allowable range is up to 255 only. Okay. Each octet will vary from up to 255. The maximum available IP address is 255.255.255.255. That's it. Okay. So there might be certain limit. There might be certain range that is what 10 crore IPs available. For example, you can consider. So come back to the main concept. As what I explained you, every device in the computer world must be assigned with one IP address. But What are the available IP addresses you have? You have available address of 0.0.0.0.02 255.255.255.255 only. That means there might be certain limitations we have. So if you start utilizing that IP addresses, one fine day, one particular point of time, all the IP addresses will be exhausted. All the IP addresses will be exhausted. So what next? So to prevent that, what they split it, they introduced one new concept called public IP, private IP. So again, within the same range, they split it public IP and private IP. The same IP address. What is meant by public IP? What is meant by private IP? Okay. So for example, you have the IP addresses as I explained you. You have every device must be assigned with one IP address. Now, if you consider this, I have one network or I have one organization. In this organization, I have 10 computers purchased or 10 servers purchased. Now, these four servers, if you consider, I have created four servers. These four servers, if I assign IP address from this range, what will happen? I will utilize the IP address from here itself. But I will, what I can say, I will utilize some IP address here. For example, 10.0.0.0. For this, I will assign 10.0.0.1. Similarly, I will assign for this 10.0.0.2. And here I will assign 10.0.0.3. And the reason why I assigned this, because I don't want to expose, I don't want to tell outside world that I'm utilizing this IP address. Don't care about it, because these devices, whatever I created in my environment, this cannot be accessible for the outside world. This is your private network. Within your private network, you are telling or you are creating the resources and you are assigning the IP addresses. Okay. One more example I can say: you have your house. In house, you have your children. For example, you have two children. Okay. For these two children, you need to assign one name called X and one name called Y. This is the registered name. The people will be called with the help of that name. Okay. But in your environment or in your house, you can call them as Chintu or you can call them as Chiti. If you go to the another house, there also they have dedicated names, but they will also utilize the Chitti or they also utilize the name Chintu. Okay, there is no restriction about it, because if you call them as a public, they will call with the name of X only, not with that short name or pet name what you will call him. Okay, so similarly, they have for the internal utilization, for private utilization, they have splitted certain ranges from this range, and they said that if you don't want to expose that ranges, or if you don't want to expose that devices to the internet, then you can assign that IP address to them. Okay, so those are called private IP addresses. How they extracted them? They extracted that IP addresses with the help of three forms, that is called class A, class B, class C. What is the range for class A? The range for class A is 10.0.0.02, 10.255.255.255. This is the range they have split it for class A. Means the IP address starting from 10 to 10 to 255. All the 10 will be remain same. This value from 0 to 255, this value from 0 to 255, this value from 0 to 255. So with this, how many IP addresses you will get? That there is one calculation that I will explain when we are discussing about subnet mask. There is a concept called subnet mask. During that time, I will discuss. But for now, just observe that for class A IP addresses, it will start from 10.0.0.02, 10.255.255.255. Means the first digit will be constant. That means IP address starting with 10. All IP addresses will be utilized under class A. There is huge number of IP addresses available here. And there is one more type of addresses called class B, that is called 172.0.0.0. 160.0.0 to 172.31.0.0. So if you are, sorry, 255.255. So if you observe here, the first set 172, it is starting from 16 to, from 16 to 31. They are keeping, and the remaining two digits will vary from 0 to 255, 0 to 255. Compare with this, there might be very slight number of less number of IP addresses available with class B type of IP addresses. If we consider class C, it should start with 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255 to 255. So if you observe here, there is very less IP addresses available. Coming to compared to the class A, here we have 0.255, 0 to 255, 0 to 255. If you come to the class B, it is starting with 16 to 31. So 0 to 255, 0 to 255. Whereas compared to the class C, you have only last two digits will vary. 0 to 255, 0 to 255. Compare with class B, very slight number of IP addresses available with class C. So that is the reason, if you observe any environment in your, if you actually working for an organization, if you see your environment, every environment will be with this IP addresses only. You will not see any other IP address. That must be start with either 10 or 172 or 192. These are the only IP addresses they will utilize for private purposes. Apart from this IP ranges, what are the ranges available? That IP addresses we used to call it as public IPs. Those can be utilized by the publicly. Okay, you can access the public IP publicly, but coming to these IP addresses or private IP addresses, you can't access them publicly because those are private. Those are reside under one particular network, private network. Okay, so these IP addresses can be utilized by anyone for the repetitive purpose because their private networks. I will create one more private network here and I will assign the same IP addresses here. But this private network can't be accessible outside. This is for my environment. This is for my environment. So I am assigning these IP addresses internally. Okay, but if you assign apart from this IP address, that IP address can be called as public IP. Okay, so this is about public IP and this is about private IP. Okay, so regarding public IP and private IP, we will see one more example. For example, there is one house here and there is one more house here. So each house has one fiber net connection. Each house having one fiber net connection. And you have one router available in your home, Wi-Fi router. That fiber net is connected to this router. And you have one more router in other home. So this router connects to, you have one mobile, you have one more mobile, you have a TV, and you have laptop. Similarly, in other house also they have a mobile, they have a TV, they have a laptop, they have another mobile, and the connection is coming from, everyone is browsing internet. They initially connected to this router, and this is also connected to the router, and this is also connected to the router, and this is also connected to the router. Similarly, this is also connected to the, these are all connected to the routers. Now there is a connection coming to the router with wired connection that we used to call it as public IP. The internet service provider will assign one IP address called public IP. For example, if you consider the public IP is 2.2.2, and this internet service provider is assigning one IP address to this router that is called 3.3.3. Now, what router will do? The router is connected to these devices. The router will assign some private IP addresses to these devices. That is called 192.168.0.1, and for this it is 2, and this it is 3, and this it is 4. If you come to another home, here also this router will assign the IP address are same. So every device must have an IP address as I told you. So this router will contact this particular device with the help of this IP address called 192.168.0.1. So this device must be known to this router via this IP address. If you observe this router backend IP addresses, these are not conflicting. These are separated by individual IPs, and these IPs are known by this router. Similarly, this router also knows this IP addresses. Now, if the person who is browsing internet from this particular place, it will first, that request first goes to the router. It will take its public IP and it will go to the internet. And again, the request response comes to the router, and router knows who requested it. That is 192.168.0.1. So it will forward that request to here. So if you observe your laptop or anything, if you search for IP configuration, you will see this private IP and you will see this public IP connected. So this private IP is for your router assigned IP. So when you come to another router or when you come to another network, if you connect to the internet over there, or if you connect to the router over there, that router will assign one public, one private IP to you, and there must be one public IP assigned with that router. You will see that. Okay. So similarly, if another person browses the internet, again it will goes to this router. It will take this IP and it will go here, and the response will come. And this response comes to the router, and router knows who is 192.160.0.2, and it will forward that request to the this particular place. Okay. So this way, the private IP address utilization, if you observe, in the public IP utilization, if you observe, this is the typical utilization of public and private IP addresses. Okay, so now we'll discuss about one important topic called masking. So what is meant by this mask? So as you know, what is meant by private IP and what is meant by public IP. And if you talk about the ranges, like as I said, that is 10.0.0.0 to 10.0.10.255.255.255. So everywhere you cannot define the range like this, right? You cannot tell that the IP address starting from this to this. You cannot tell. For that reason, we need to use a concept of masking. So what is meant by masking? Okay. So for example, if you consider here, as I told you, the IP address consists of 4 octets. I told you. The first one is octet 1 dot octet 2 dot octet 3 dot octet 4. The 4 octets I already told you here. There are 4 sets. So each octet we used to call it as number 8. Okay, octet means 8. So if you divide this 10 dot 0 dot 0 dot 0 as how many octets it has? 4 octets. This first octet is 8, second octet is 8, third octet is 8, fourth octet is 8. So this is the octet. So if you observe this number 10.0.0.02, 10.255.255.255. So if you observe here from source to the destination, what is the number varying? What is the number is in fixed position? If you consider from left to right, IP addresses will always comes from left to right. Any number you can consider as if you consider as a number, it will consider if you consider it as left to right. Okay. So for example, you come to left to right. So if first left is 0. So this number is varying, right? 0 to 255. And this number is also varying 0 to 255. And this number is also varying 0 to 255. But this number is not varying. It is fixed. 10, 10. It is fixed. So this position is fixed. This position we used to call it as number 8. That is called octet. The first octet is in fixed position. So and remaining 3 octets are varying. So that is the reason I can define this range as 10.0.0.0/8. What is meant by this 8? This 8 means the first octet. The first octet is fixed, and remaining three octets are varying from 0 to 255, 0 to 255, 0 to 255. If you consider the same example, 10 dot 0 dot 0 dot 0 slash 16. What is meant by the 16? The 16 is a combination of 8 plus 8. 8 plus 8 means the first two octets are constant and remaining two octets are varying. This is 16 means 8 plus 8. So first 8 is constant and second 8 is constant. These two will vary from 0 to 255. Now what is the range for this? This range is 10.0.0.0 to 10.0.255 to 255. Means first two digits are constant, last two digits are varying. That is called 16. Same example if you consider 10.0.0.0 slash 24. That means first 8 is constant, second 8 is constant, third 8 is constant, and fourth 8 is varying. Okay, these three 8s are constant because 24 means 8 plus 8 plus 8. So three octets are constant. Only last octet is varying. So how you can define this range? 10.0.0.0 to 10.0.0.255. Only the last digit is varying. This for this it is 8, for this it is 8, for this it is 8. Three eights are 24. So 24 given means first three digits are constant and last digit is varying from 0 to 255. That is called slash 24. So if you consider the same example 10.0.0.0 slash 32 means 32 means 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. The four eights sum is 32. That means this first 8 is also fixed, second 8 is also fixed, third 8 is also fixed, fourth 8 is also fixed. Everything is fixed. That means there is no range. This is a single IP. Nothing is varying. 32 means four octets are fixed. First octet is fixed, second octet fixed, third octet fixed, fourth octet is fixed. So there is no range. It's a single IP. If you define a single IP as a mask, you can use 32 because the four octets are fixed. There's nothing to vary. If you consider 24, 8 plus 8 plus 8. So first three digits will constant, only last digit will vary. If we consider as a 16, 8 plus 8. So the first 8 and the second 8, these two are constant, remaining two will vary up to 255. If you consider as a 8, the first octet is constant, remaining three octets will vary up to 0 to 255, 0 to 255, 0 to 255. This is about subnet masking. So now you know what is meant by the slash 8, 16, 24, and 32, how the octets are defined. Now come to my scenario. For example, I have an organization, I have 500 employees, and I have 500 machines. So I need 500 IP addresses only. Then how I can select which range I need to select. So I know if I choose slash 8, the IP addresses will vary from 10.0.0.0 to this many number of IP addresses I will come. If you select as a 16, this vary from 0 to 255, 0 to 255. Now I want to know how many IP addresses will get if I use slash 16. And I want to know if I select range as 24, how many IP addresses I will get. That you will get it using one simple formula, that is 2 to the power of 32 minus n. This is the formula, 2 to the power of 32 minus n. So with this formula, you can know you need to select 8 or you need to select 16 or you need to select 24 or you need to select some other. Okay. For example, if I need only single IP, if I need only single IP, then what subnet mask I need to select? That is called 2 to the power of 32 minus 32. If you select subnet mask as 32, then 2 to the power of 32 minus 32 is 2 to the power of 0. 2 to the power of 0 is equal to 1. So if you need one IP address, you need to select the subnet mask as 32. For example, if I need 30 IP addresses or 50 IP addresses or like that, so you need to calculate similarly. For example, if you take 2 to the power of 32 minus, I can select the range as 31, subnet as 31. If I select as 31, then what is the value you will get here? 2 to the power of 32 minus 31 is 2 to the power of 1. 2 to the power of 1 is equal to 2. I'll get two IP addresses. If I select 2 to the power of 32 minus 30, okay, 30 as a subnet mask, then how many IP addresses I will get? 2 to the power of 32 minus 30 means 2 to the power of 2. 2 to the power of 2 is equal to 4. I'll get 4 IP addresses. Similarly, if I select 2 to the power of 32 minus the same example, if you see here 24, if I select 24, what is with the value? 2 to the power of 32 minus 24 is how much the number? It was around 8. 2 to the power of 8. 2 to the power of 8 is nothing but 256. How many IP addresses you will get? You will get 256 IP addresses you will get. Okay, so if you select slash 24, if you see the same number here slash 24 again, so it is varying from, if you observe here, 10 is fixed, 0 is fixed, 0 is fixed. The last address will vary from 0 to 255. How many IP addresses you will get? 256 IP addresses you will get, starting from 0 ending with 255. Total count is 256 IP addresses. So this way you will calculate what is the subnet you required, how many IP addresses you required. Based on that, you need to select the respective subnet. So similarly, it will start the IP address. It will define the range from starting IP address to ending IP addresses based on your subnet.